Well, hello there and welcome to TATV's Newsround for all the aerospace and defence headlines and highlights across the emerging markets of Africa, the Middle East and South Asia. I'm Alan Peaford. Well, this week we'll find out about drones on medical duties in India and growing concerns over birds in Nigeria. And there's feedback from not one but two physical shows in Dubai, and we'll hear about a virtual one in Africa. And we're also going to look at the sad demise of one of the greatest dreams since Concorde. But first, we're going to get all the news headlines from Marcelle Nethersole straight after this commercial break. Stay with us.
Hello, and here are the aerospace and defence headlines from Middle East, Africa and South Asia. India's flagship airline Air India confirmed this week that the personal data of about 4.5 million passengers was stolen in a security breach. The breach affected all Air India passengers' personal data that was registered with SETA system between August 26, 2011 and late February 2021. The compromised data included customers' names, date of birth, contact information, passport information, credit card data, and Star Alliance and Air India frequent flyer data. The airline has begun an investigation. The privatisation of the airline has been postponed until September or October. Reports of the death of South African Airways may have been greatly exaggerated, as new interim CEO Thomas Kogolo plans on resuming full domestic and regional operations within weeks. This is dependent on finalising negotiations with SAA pilots about their severance packages, he said. He also warned that the intercontinental services are unlikely to resume for another 2 years, as the carrier's new management team has limited operating capital at its disposal. But as one door closes, another opens. New links between Africa and the USA were celebrated last week when United Airlines launched the first flight of its new 3 times a week service to Accra, Ghana from Washington's DC Dulles Airport. Fears that residents of Cape Verde could be stranded after the withdrawal services by Binter have been allayed, following the arrival of Angola's Best Fly to the islands. Best Fly will be utilising 2 ATR 72-600s on the intra-island flights within a 6-month contract, as it develops a local-based subsidiary with a Cape Verde AOC. India's rapidly growing Indigo has selected CFM International LEAP-1A engines to power its fleet of 310 new Airbus A320 and A321neos and the long-distance A321XLR aircraft. The agreement includes 620 installed engines and associated spare engines, as well as a multi-year service agreement. Nigeria's Green Africa Airways began selling tickets on May 25th. The airline plans to begin operations on June 24th, serving several domestic destinations from its base in Lagos. Dubai-headquartered aviation services company JetX has continued to expand around the world and has announced the expansion of its presence in Latin America. It now is offering a full suite of services in every major commercial and tourism hub in the region, including Argentina, Colombia and Peru, in addition to its existing operations in Brazil, Chile and Mexico. Rolls-Royce is strengthening its commitment to sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, by launching a new service, Safinity, which will initially cater for business aviation customers. Safinity enables business aviation customers to operate flights in a carbon-neutral way and is available for business aircraft and engines from any manufacturer. Qatar Airways Group Chief Executive Akbar Al-Bakr has been named as chairman of the governing body of the One World Alliance. He succeeds Qantas Group CEO Alan Joyce, who has served in the role since September 2018. Well, it's back to you, Alan.
Thanks, Ella. Well, there's been a lot of chatter on different pilot sites about a rise in the number of bird strikes in Nigeria. And we're joined on the line now by our airports editor, Chloe Greenbank. Chloe, hi. So what's happening there in Nigeria?
Hello, and thank you. Yeah, so I guess first up, it's important to note that bird strike isn't a problem that's unique to Nigeria. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, it costs the industry around $1.2 billion per annum. The concern in Nigeria is that there have been several reported incidents of bird strike in recent months. Now, just last week, a MAX Air flight from bound for Abuja had to return to base shortly after taking off from Kano Airport following a bird strike, which caused one of the two engines to malfunction. And just 48 hours earlier, an aero contractor's flight had to return to base after bird strike following takeoff from Port Harcourt. Now, these aren't isolated incidents. There have been several other reported cases, and earlier this year in January, British Airways reported multiple bird strikes when landing at Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos. So it's a serious concern and something that needs to be addressed. Now, earlier I spoke with Kerry Henshaw, Director of Operations at Aviation, which specialises in wildlife hazard management, and has worked with various airports across Africa, including most recently in West and Central Africa. She explained to me why the situation in Nigeria is so complex and why understanding the different factors at play and engaging with all the different aviation stakeholders is key to managing the problem.
The situation in Nigeria is complex, and they are dealing with a great variances in geography and climate and land use. For every airport, they'll be dealing with a unique set of circumstances, and it's very much to do with how humans are behaving within the area of the airport, the wide number of wildlife species, the birds that they're dealing with, how those birds are actually behaving, and knowing where those risks are, how to deal with them. So the more they know about their particular circumstances, the better they can actually deal with the situation, the risk levels.
Okay, and so we've already heard reports that the federal airport teams in Nigeria they've already started cutting grass around the airports and using pyrotechnics to help deter bird species. Is there anything else that they can be doing at this sort of initial level?
These are good actions. There's nothing wrong with them, and we see them commonly used across a lot of airports. Whether there are other things that can be done depends on the factors which are actually influencing the strike risk levels at each airport. Each will be different. So they really should be understanding exactly which species are causing the problem, what are the reasons that those birds are actually moving into the critical flight zones for aircraft, and what can be done to actually adjust perhaps those flight paths. I mean, maybe moving food sources, maybe removing nesting locations. It can be done in a way which is environmentally sensitive. It doesn't need to be in an aggressive way, which is detrimental to the sustainability of bird populations. But you can actually do things which means that the birds can be of less risk to actual aircraft that are moving.
Oh, that's fascinating. So, Chloe, what do we have to do then to make a successful wildlife management system in Africa?
Well, as Kerry was explaining, it's really about understanding the different bird populations in or around an airport and what might be causing them to come and be in that environment. So whether it's about a waste disposal site that's near the airport or long grasses, there are lots of different factors. So it's about recognizing what those are and then applying the different methods that are needed to mitigate those risks. And I think that now more than ever, airports need to demonstrate how safe their operations are, and wildlife hazard management is key to that.
Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.
Well, in our last news round, we looked at how cargo carriers and military were working to bring vaccines to India. But this week, our correspondent Neelam Matthews finds out how the latest UAS technology is being brought in for those final miles of delivery.
The second phase of the coronavirus continues to wreak lives and play havoc with the ailing healthcare system in India. Now, there's a ray of hope provided by smaller-sized unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. Courtesy the Ministry of Civil Aviation, regulations have been speeded up for a limited period for operators to deliver medicines and vaccines to remote areas that are sparsely connected by rail, road, or air. A large number of Indian states have selected drone operators that have completed trials for the delivery of vaccines, blood samples, and medicines to rural health centers. Incidentally, this trend was set by a US-based zipline that delivered vital medical supplies by drones to rural clinics and hospitals in Rwanda and Ghana. Even in places with road connections, time using drones is cut down from 45 minutes to 7 minutes, which is particularly helpful in medical emergencies. Varanasi, the constituency from where Prime Minister Narendra Modi was elected, has taken the lead in India. Chennai-based Garuda Aerospace that sanitized the city was subsequently awarded orders from many municipal corporations, will now start trials from early June for delivery of medicines and vaccines. And my friends, this is just the beginning. The pandemic has highlighted the need to upgrade rural health centers in India. Drones will now and in future not just provide imminent access to healthcare, but ensure better health for all. And now, this is Neelam Matthews signing off. Over to you, Alan.
Well, that was Neelam Matthews reporting from New Delhi. Well, the UAE has continued to lead the way with the revival of live physical shows. And since our last show, Dubai has hosted no fewer than 2 physical events. Our GCC editor, Jill Stockbridge, has been walking the floors of both of them. So, Jill, the airport show and the Arabian travel market, what was the turnout like?
The Arabian travel market, they were looking at exhibitors from about 62 countries and travel professionals from more than 100. If the aisles were a little wider than they used to be, it was still a good show, a very optimistic atmosphere. As Neelam said, it's no surprise that India was noticeably missing, but we had Israel made its debut at the ATM, part of our new accord. It was generally optimistic. People were happy to be meeting again in person. There were very few brochures. Everything is now a QR code.
Well, the airports were very much involved in that ATM as well, weren't they? Because I saw that Dubai Airports chief Paul Griffiths was having a bit of a crack at the UK.
He did. He was being interviewed on the global stage, and he did mention the fact that, we have been promised that the red list is designed by data. He doesn't feel that we've been entirely treated fairly if that's the case. The data to support Dubai being at least amber would seem to be there, but he was also very cautious and believes that we will soon see some change.
Well, certainly the Gulf states are doing well with their travel processes and contactless and so on. So let's move on now onto the airport show. Innovation and everything, how was the mood there?
Again, a general feeling of optimism, glad to be there, glad to be meeting. I mean, we have a pavilion from Germany, Italy, France, Switzerland, as well as the big guys at Siemens, Honeywell, the major people are there. What I'd say was, from talking to them, the airports are already innovative. They use cutting edge technology. What we've seen is adaptation. So maybe using the same technology, but in a slightly different way, or the focus has changed. So maybe a facial recognition technology has now been adapted and improved to spot people whether they're wearing a mask or not, or to measure the distance to ensure social distancing. So yes, it's innovation, but in some ways it's systems they had, but they're tweaking them, they're improving them to make them for the new needs of airport operators.
Okay, I guess both shows were focused on getting passengers moving again. And it wasn't just the airlines, was it?
Well, as you might be aware, Dubai has seen a tremendous growth in private aviation. Dubai South has just announced that through the VIP terminal, they have had a record 4,900 plus movements for the first quarter of 2021. I mean, this is way more than even 2019 only saw just under 1,700. So certainly this is an area that's growing. And at the ATM, in fact, on the global stage, we had a rather low-key launch of a fractional company, which is a first for this region, the fractional private jet ownership company, the Jet Sets. They're based in Dubai, but they're using Gamma's AOC out of Sharjah, and they're looking to sell 10th fractions of a Bombardier Global 6000, allowing people that private boutique travel, but at a pretty reduced cost overall.
Well, thanks, Jill. That will be one to look out for. And with a good team there being involved in it, it could play a part in the mix of getting people flying again. And we look forward to seeing you in person again soon.
Thanks very much, Alan.
Well, if airlines, airports and tourism organisations hadn't got their head around the importance of collaboration before, then surely they need to do it now. And one man who is adamant that they must is our next guest, John Howell, the founder and CEO of Aviadev, whose annual route development event in Africa happens in June. So hi, John. How important is it that we get this right?
It couldn't be more important. It's almost existential, to be honest, Alan. So when we think about what's happened to the environment in the African aviation industry, but across the globe, airports, their revenues have been decimated because, of course, they're so dependent on passenger revenues, and we're starting from ground zero. So the way I see it is that they're going to have to work closer together in a collaborative manner. And it's actually going to be driven very much by the tourism boards and the tourism authorities and the ministries of tourism, who are going to have to engage with these airlines and say, you have a movable asset. We would like you to deploy that to our destination. Specifically in Africa, the amount of destinations and tourists that arrive at their destination by air is absolutely massive. Globally, it's about 57%, but in Africa, it will be even higher than that. So aviation is going to play such a huge part in the recovery of tourism, and the tourism authorities now need to get closer than ever before to the airlines and the airports.
So tell us about the event.
Okay, so the virtual event is the 9th to the 10th of June, and it is hosted very graciously by Ravenala Airports, which is the airport authority over in Madagascar, who operate Nosy Be and Antananarivo airports on a concession for 28 years. In terms of what we can expect, we've got some incredible sessions coming up. We've got speakers you wouldn't always hear from, but definitely people at the coal face who are working really hard within the industry. But the most important part of the event is we pre-arranging one-to-one route development meetings between over 20 countries from Africa, from their civil aviation authorities and their airport authorities, with over 40 airlines that are registered as well for the event, that are there to talk about route development, listen to the business cases, and start planning for the recovery.
Thanks, John. Well, another show on the horizon is the MRO Middle East event, which is also live in Dubai. And that takes place on the 15th and 16th of June. It's open for registration now. There's likely to be some interesting things there. And the show looks like it's getting great support from the regional players. Now, finally, if ever proof was needed that bringing a new aircraft to market is harder than you think, then spare a thought for billionaire Robert Bass and the amazing skilled engineering team at Aerospace. For 17 years, the project to get the first civil supersonic jet since Concorde in the air has moved steadily along from design to technology partners and through to a backlog of orders worth more than $11 billion for the Mach 1.2 AS2 supersonic business jet. But last week, the doors closed on the project, less than 6 months after Aerion broke ground on a new $300 million, 2 million square foot headquarters complex at Florida's Orlando-Melbourne International Airport. Blue chip suppliers and partners like NASA, Honeywell, Collins, Spirit Aerospace, and engine maker GE are as stunned as the rest of us. A number of the early orders came from the Gulf and were boosted by sales to FlexJet as well. The company said it had become hugely challenging in the current financial situation to capitalise the move into production. It had been expected to make its first flight in 2023. It's a sad day for our industry, and one must wonder, will we ever see that supersonic dream come true? Well, that's all we've got time for. It's been great to have you with us. And until the next time, stay safe. Goodbye.
How do we achieve ultimate defense interoperability? Inspired by Vision 2030, we are introducing the first of its kind, the World Defense Show. Integrating land, air, sea, satellite, and security.